Randy, it is so great to connect with you, and I would love to welcome you to my show.
Thank you, Liz. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, we have so much in common in terms of our career coaching approach, and so I thought it would be great to have a conversation today.
Wonderful.
So, you've spent 30 years in the corporate world before becoming a coach. I'm curious, what inspired you to make this career pivot, and when did you know it was time for something different?
Yeah. It's a great question, and it all it's so seamless the way it all sort of happened. I loved my first career. I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I know that I've always needed to do some good while I'm doing well. So being in the pharma industry and helping patients really motivated me. But then the higher up I got within a big, complex organization, the more internally focused I was. And all of a sudden, it felt like one day it just wasn't exciting me. The stuff that used to excite me was exhausting to me. And so I had to do some soul searching and figure out what did that mean. And I was lucky because at really pivotal points in my career, taking on new responsibility, going through changes, things like that, I've had a coach. My company was great about providing that. So I knew what a difference that made. And I felt that, frankly, that I would be skilled at it. I knew that in my second act, I could coach people that were sort of where I had been. And in that way, like the way that I serve my doing some good while I'm doing well now is that I help other people achieve their goals. And that's really, really satisfying to me. And I've built a successful business, so I'm serving all of those needs. Um, and it completely fits where I am at this point in my life for flexibility and things like that. So, knowing the journey that I went on, I think puts me in a really good position to help people that might be thinking, is it time? Should I be transitioning? What would that look like? And I really love doing that work.
Wow, that really resonates. I think it's important to recognize, right, that we have seasons, that our careers have seasons. And I know, I work with college students, and a lot of times they're like, okay, I'm going to pick my career. That's something I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm like, well, no, that's great for some people. However, for many of us, there's moments, what you just mentioned, I wasn't excited about my role anymore. And it's important to recognize when it's time to transition. And so, as you can imagine, as a fellow career coach, there are so many people that are going through these seasons of change, and maybe not everyone has worked with a coach. And I know that you are a fellow podcaster
Mhm.
and you host a podcast called Fulfilling Career Happy Life. Love the title. What are some of the themes that you cover in your podcast?
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, as a podcaster, you understand, at least for me personally, I felt like I had an idea in the beginning and I wasn't really sure. I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing. It takes time when you're doing anything new. That's okay. Now, what I'm doing is each season is focused on a different theme. And my theme for this season is leadership courage. So I'm talking to executives out there and coaches, both. I have a mix of what does leadership courage mean? How do we tap into it? How does it apply to company culture and things like that? So really, and the way that I pick those topics is what are the themes that I'm seeing, that sort of the thread that ties through. I'm hearing from different clients. All of a sudden, okay, this is a topic that we need to talk about. So right now, that's what I'm very focused on. But anything that sort of fits into that fulfilling career and happy life frame is fair game.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you talk about leadership courage, can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting because with a lot of the clients, I start with what does that mean to you? And I'm getting different flavors of that. The reason that I felt that that was important right now is because it feels like the world is requiring courage of us. And all of the things that go into what allows us to take a courageous stand, which many times is really acting in integrity with our values, what the things we say are important. And so it's really about what's the stand we take as leaders? How do we lead our teams? How do we provide the right example for them? How do we encourage that leadership courage on their part? And how do we influence our companies to lead that way. And people coming up, I'm sure I tend to work with people who are farther along in their career. I'm sure you see it with college students that you work with. These people, frankly, are smarter than I was at that age. They know what they want in a company. There's certain values that they depend on, that they count on. They want companies that may be environmentally conscious, that may give back to their community, that really walk their talk in that way. I'm so impressed when I hear that kind of thing from folks. They want a company that has courage.
Yeah. And these are important questions to ask or before even diving into an organization, right? There has to be alignment with your values and what you consider to be fulfilling for yourself as an individual.
Yeah.
Now, kind of going back a little bit to even your journey, when people are in their careers, what would you say are some of the early signs that it is time to move on, that they have outgrown their current chapter?
It's an important question because I would say the time to start considering it is the first time the thought pops into your head.
Mm,
And to understand that exploring it a little bit does not mean you're being disloyal or that even you're going to decide to leave your company if you're in a big company. That's not it at all. It's being true to yourself and what you want in your life. And I think it's important to break down what is working for you in your company, because if there's enough that is working for you, once you get clear on that and once you get clear on what isn't, you may be able to make some changes right where you are to find that spark again, and there may be good reasons to do that. But in the event that you decide to make a change, you know clearly what are the things you need to look for, what are the things you need to preserve, and what are the things you want to be watching out for because they're the things that may not work for you. And we don't always get it perfect, but
mm,
doing that exploration and really digging into self is one of the things that's important in finding that fit again. And if you've been someone that's really lucky to have had that, because not everybody has, if you've had one of those jobs where you're jumping out of bed every morning, you can't wait to get to work, you know what that feels like. You can dig into that, and then it's pretty clear what's missing. And then the thing I would say, Liz, is you know, get some help. If people are feeling this way, it's very hard to stay in your own head and figure this out. I have a good friend who says, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
mm.
So I know it's good, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So you got to get out of the jar. You've got to get out of your own head in order to have some clarity on it. And the best way to do that is to talk that out with somebody. Could be a mentor, it could be a partner, I mean, I'm obviously a big believer in coaching. And I don't say that because it's self-serving. I say that because I recognize the work that you and I do genuinely helps people. So if we don't tell them about it, we're not helping them.
Yeah.
My point is get some help. Most of us can't do it alone. I couldn't.
I feel like that this kind of journey requires support. And like you said, that outsider perspective and from someone that you trust, a mentor or someone that can ask the right questions, provide some tools and resources. Because you're absolutely right. I feel like when I'm having conversations with people, you're just so in your own world and your perspective is limited. But then when someone starts asking you these questions, these deeper conversations or questions rather, they're like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that I can see that connection now. So just helping people make those connections.
Absolutely. And the reality is, if we're doing it on our own, we may fixate on one possibility and we convince ourselves that we're right. It's just
Hmm.
kind of human nature. And so it's helpful to even have somebody pressure test it with you a little bit because it's quite possible. I mean, I often have conversation with clients around, okay, I see that what else might that mean? What else might be true here? And sometimes just in playing that out, either you become more convinced that what you were thinking was right, which is of value, or you see something that you didn't see. I think it's
Hmm.
important. It also models for, we're talking to leaders. It models for them the behavior that they want to encourage in the people that they work with, the kind of relationship they may want to have with the people that they work with. I mean, your boss isn't always the right one to go to because there's dynamics of power or authority. There may be, you may not want to completely share everything with them, which is fair. Sometimes that's smart. So your boss isn't always the right one. But I think as leaders, we want to encourage that kind of getting that kind of support with our teams.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. It's such an important conversation to have. For me, I'm a true believer of growth. And even sometimes when you have a team member that is amazing and they're like, I'm ready to take the leap. For me as a leader, I encourage it. I'm like, that's part of our career journey.
Yeah.
That's practice what you preach.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, it takes courage though. You have to put everything in place. There are some people that believe like leap and the net will appear. Okay, I have always been one that had to spend some time building the net before I can trust that. So you need to know your own personal level of risk tolerance so that you know when the time is right. There's a lot to it, but that exploration will absolutely serve you in future choices.
Well, kind of on that note, you talk about how some transitions are chosen and others are imposed.
Mhm.
So what if it's someone right now, right, that they are going through a reorganization or an unexpected change? Where should they focus their energy?
It's It's an important question because in that time where the change may be unexpected, companies go through reorganizations, companies close. Like there's these things that happen that are out of our control. So, and that can be a really scary time, especially if you're in a point in your life where, like, financially, you're not feeling that you can take a big risk or whatever that looks like for you.
Mhm.
Very often, what can be really helpful is focusing on what you can control. And that might be your own skill set, the attitude that you bring to your work and support of others during that time of transition, how you're going about researching what other possibilities are. If you focus in on things you can control and take action on, that often can stop the swirl, can quiet the anxiety, which really doesn't help you. And then you can take the action that's best for you. And in the meantime, you're showing up as someone who's really valuable, who's really contributing, and people notice that. If they're in a situation where they're having to streamline the workplace, who are they going to want? The people that step up and lead themselves and help others through it, or the people that really struggle and are maybe distracting to others during that time? And that's not to cast blame on those people. Everyone does the best they can. But think about it as when you're building a team, you know clearly who you want. So I think it's better for your company. It's better for your chances, if you will, of having options, and it's just better for you.
Yeah, no, that's right on point. I feel like that's something that is important to recognize, especially when you're experiencing these uncertainty things that are beyond your control. Because you're right, I feel that there are certain things that require that risk, but sometimes you're put in these situations where you have no choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you do have a choice, sometimes we undervalue, under recognize, whatever you want to call it, that there's risk in staying where you are. So it's
Yep.
important to understand your own level of risk tolerance, but you know, oftentimes these moves, here's another thought about if a change is forced on you. I have seen so many people go through this. Many more people have a good experience on the other end than don't. And the
Mm.
problem is like I have faith that okay, in a year from now or whatever time frame you pick, you are going to think, boy, that was actually a good thing for me. I didn't choose it, but it was a good thing for me. The problem is between today and then, you kind of have to have faith. Like you don't get to know that until you're on the other end. But I hope that people don't discount that possibility that maybe it was time for a change. The place I'm going to land is going to be even better. I'm going to learn so much during this transition. And if you can tap into that, it helps you lead yourself through it.
Yeah. And I'll say that I've had conversations with people who've been laid off. And once they have arrived to the other side, they're like, oh, this was a blessing in disguise. You've heard that too? You're nodding yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, it requires faith
Mm.
or I don't know, confidence in the universe, whichever way, whatever does it for you to know that you're going to get there. You don't get validation of that until you're looking back on it. So if that happens, you just have to make good use of the time,
Mhm.
um, in whatever way that means for you, when I've had periods of transition, I've tried to sort of look at what's missing from my life that I didn't make time for previously. And so I've gotten involved in a lot of ways of giving back to my community, doing work with nonprofits that mean something to me, that kind of thing. And that has helped round out my life a little bit. But everybody's at different phases. I'm at the phase where, my kids are grown and gone. So I have, that empty nest phase, which is amazing and fun. But I have more flexibility than I did before. So, you take advantage of the stage of life that you're in.
Absolutely. I love that. You do. You have to leverage your season. I share this with my students all the time. I'm like, they're like, oh, I can't wait till I'm, at this age. I'm like, enjoy the phase and season that you are right now. I think there's advantages to all phases. Now, one of the things that I really love to talk about with clients or just kind of going through the journey is the confidence piece. I feel like in our career, I mean, the confidence is a huge part of growth and taking chances. Now, how do you help clients rebuild confidence after a professional setback?
That is a really valuable question because I think taking that time to think about where you are and what you need to be showing up your best for yourself and when you're interviewing or whatever that looks like is really, really valuable. If you don't pay attention to that, sorry, my phone rang. If you don't pay attention to that, it's not going away. It's just that there may be things that, that little voice in our head, we have that inner conversation. It's just distracting. It's not helpful. So dealing with it often can put you on the right track. And a lot of times what's helpful is to think back to a time when you did feel really confident. What was in place? How were you showing up? What were the skills you were pulling on? Because that can help you to recognize those things are still there. You just may not be as in touch with them because this uncertainty. Sometimes, if you're displaced from a job, you can almost go through a grieving process. You may feel less than. Like there's all these things going on. And so tapping back to when you really were firing on all cylinders can help you to recognize that you can tap back into that again, but also help you to talk about that time with potential employers. And the other thing that I would say is I hope that people can take any shame off themselves. Those of us that have had long careers have had ups and downs. We've had changes that I mean, I was in the corporate world. I was at the mercy of different changes. I had the job I had always wanted, like the best job. I was right where I wanted to be. And 2 years in, we went through restructuring and that job went away. So I was fortunate. I was offered something else that was really compelling to me. And I sort of have that experience to draw from. Almost all of us that have long careers have had those ups and downs. And so some of it is how do you handle it? And all of those things serve you. But that doesn't mean it's not hard to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that question I asked because I know I've had colleagues that have experienced a professional setback through a layoff, and I can see the difference where, these individuals were very confident, very competent, and just amazing. And then just the conversations have shifted where they're like, oh, a lot of like self-doubt. And I think it's because of that grieving process and just that experience where they're like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. And that's, like you said, it's a very difficult situation to be in, but just being able to rebuild that confidence. And I love what you said. You said you have to remind yourself of when you were shooting it from all cylinders, right? Like when were you thriving and that you were making an impact? And maybe even when were you overcoming challenges and just reminding yourself of those moments and that you still
Yeah.
have it in you.
Yeah. And this is another area, Liz, where like let people help you.
Yeah.
You think about what you want. If I want like honest feedback on like what are my leadership opportunities to do even better, I might ask some people because I know you don't want to go to the people that are just going to say yes to you and tell you what you want to hear, like in that moment.
Mm.
If I'm looking to rebuild my confidence, I want to go to people that I've worked really well with, that I know respect me. And you could ask, it might seem silly, but you could ask them a question. What are the 3 or 5 adjectives you would use to describe me and my leadership? What's the biggest impact I made on you in your career? You're going to hear some good stuff that's going to remind you of the things that you may be undervaluing in
Yes.
the mark that you've left on people, and that may help you tap back into it. Everybody goes through those moments.
No, absolutely. It's interesting because that actually reminded me of a conversation I just had with I teach college students. I work with college students, and some of my students are involved in internships. And
Hmm.
they're like, I don't really feel like I'm bringing value to my internship, right? They're early careerists. And so it just kind of reminded me of this conversation. And I said, talk to your supervisor. Ask them, what are some of the meaningful contributions I've been making in my role? I'm like, I've had interns that have been amazing, and because of them, we've implemented changes. And so I think sometimes asking questions from supervisors, colleagues, peers, you'll learn more about yourself or recognize the things that you might be undervaluing.
I think it's a really important point. And one other thing that I'll add is this person, like, good for them for asking the question or wondering about it, but they may be overestimating what they're expected to deliver because
Mm,
you don't bring in an intern with the goal of them delivering at a director or VP level.
right.
You bring them in to assess them as future talent, to give back in terms of bringing up the next generation, to get some arms and legs on the ground, helping them move things across the finish line. So there may be objectives to that they're not even seeing and, could be of value to them. They may want to be in a position of getting letters of recommendation out of it. Like that's important out of an internship. So maybe, just identifying some of those things so that the burden isn't all on them might help them. But I give them a lot of credit for asking.
I know. Yes. And again, that takes courage.
It does.
Takes courage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a situation, no matter what phase of life, with the college students or, mid-career or wherever that is, if you're not sure of something, so you're in a new role or you have new leadership or you're taking on a new business opportunity, you're doing things you've never done before. I mean, think back to something like if you when you learned how to ski or you learned how to ride a bike, you didn't get out there and do it beautifully the first time. It takes time. And anything you take on that's new is the same. But actually, I find that to be really important because if you take something on, like I talk to clients about this all the time, if you're taking on a new role and it's not uncomfortable in the beginning, you're probably going to be bored in 6 months.
Yep.
You got to get uncomfortable to grow and like embrace it and take it on because the meaningful things, you got to go through the discomfort to get there.
I call them the growing pains.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know in all my roles, I'm just like, I know that I have to go through this as part of it, and then you find your rhythm. So yeah, I definitely understand that. All right, so someone, let's say someone is thinking about whatever phase they are in their journey in their career, regardless of the years of experience, and they're thinking, is my path still aligned? What's the first step that they should take as they're asking themselves this question?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had this conversation with clients so many times. I actually developed a tool to address it,
Ah,
which I can make available to your folks. It's free, but it's really just it gives them an opportunity to break down their current situation on 8 different pillars of career satisfaction. So there are things like leadership, growth, fun, connections, and they can assess where they are, what they've got in that situation out of that on a scale of 1 to 10. Then they have sort of, as objective as you can get, a picture of what's working for them and what isn't. And that gives a lot of information to go on. It gives them a chance to think about, is it their current leadership or is it the leadership of the company? Just the person that they're reporting to, or is it something more systemic? Then they may know, they may have a feel for what they want to look for in the next thing. Um, they may have a great example of growth, for example. If they're doing really, really well on that, and that is motivating to them, they know that that's important to them, and they wanted to go into a situation where there's a lot of growth opportunities, in the near term and in the future. So it's really breaking down what's working for you and what isn't. and getting to know yourself a little bit that way.
Yeah, I think the self-reflection piece is extremely important. And I emphasize that point every conversation I have on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous that you have this resource, this tool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a career satisfaction assessment. It's free on my website. If you're okay with it, we could put the link in the show notes. And if it's helpful for people, they can access it.
Absolutely, that would be
You know,
wonderful.
one other thing that I want to say, and you and I talked a little bit about this, I think before we started recording in regards to college students, but it applies to everyone.
Mm.
You aren't making lifetime decisions. Hopefully the person you choose to marry is a lifetime decision. Whether or not to have kids is a lifetime decision. A job that you take or a company that you join isn't a lifetime decision. And I think it's smart to think about it that way because while you're spending your years building your career, you're also living your life. And you don't want, you might need to take something to sort of pay your dues to the next thing, but you don't want to do that too many times. You want to be in a situation that fits you. And I have had clients that even have done like gotten degrees in certain things. I had a client who went to medical school. Talk about a huge investment. And when she got out to practicing medicine, she realized it was not what she thought it was going to be. And she completely changed careers. She's able to pull on her medical background a little bit. But it took a lot of courage for her to make that decision. But she's really happy now. So I think, if people will pick their own time frame, it might be a 5-year decision, it might be a 2-year decision, whatever it is. And then it's important to go through that process again and reevaluate where are you, what's working, what might not be, so that you can make some either major changes or just small corrections so that things are lining up better for you. There is a lot we can control in this. Like nobody else can manage your career the way that you do. Even if you have a boss and a company that invests a lot and is really vested in this, you have to be in the driver's seat of it for yourself. So the better you know yourself, the more likely you are to be successful.
Yes, I absolutely. I love that you are in the driver's seat. For sure, you have more control than you think. And that it's not, I love that. A career is not a life decision, right? Because it's ongoing. We change as people. We have
Yeah.
different experiences.
Yeah.
And I always tell the people that I work with is the more you are centered and you know your compass, the easier those decisions will be.
Yeah. And knowing yourself and your compass, which is a great way to put it, and paying attention to how you react to things. When you
Hmm.
hear the news, like there was one time when I was interviewing for a job and wasn't quite sure. I heard I didn't get the job and I was relieved. Boy, that taught me a lot. So, like, pay attention to how you react to things big and small, and that can really be validating to, yeah, what are your values? What are your drivers at this phase of your life?
Yes. Randy, this was amazing. You shared so much great insight. And I appreciate you also that you'll be sharing that tool, that career satisfaction tool. Are there other resources or services that you would like to talk about?
Thank you for asking. I mean, like you, offer one-on-one coaching if someone wants to explore that. But really, what I'd like to encourage is people to go to listen to my podcast,
Yes.
Fulfilling Career Happy Life. It's on all the podcast sites and the videos are up on YouTube. So, yeah, I'd be happy for people to subscribe to that.
Awesome. Well, I will be including all of that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. This was fabulous. I love connecting with other career coaches and podcasters. No pressure.
I got you. I got you. We will talk again. It's been my pleasure, Liz. Thank you for
Yes,
having me.
likewise.